Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So let me think. I can't remember when I last streamed. I think maybe it was around a week ago. I feel like it was kind of just after the top because I think I was away at the end of last week and didn't get a chance to kind of really update about when the top, or at least the local top came in. Yeah, since then obviously we've fallen. I think actually I do remember now. So last time I streamed, we were around here because we were looking at whether we thought this zone would hold. And obviously now, well, it retraced and hasn't, but it didn't. It got taken out for a wick, and the expectation was that it would do because we had a wick taking out the high, and therefore there's a chance we were going to get a wick taking out the low, and demand won't hold because demand's weak if it's been unable to break the high. So we had a bit of messing around in here before it did decide to wick down, and then Friday we had the news that Powell may cut interest rates, and thus we had the pump. Unfortunately for crypto, what happened is that we also had the weekend. So let's look at the stocks quickly. So all the stocks, so the dollar dumped on that news, and all the stocks pumped as well, having retraced previously. So if we look at S&P, for example, and that just dropped straight back into weekly demand and has come back up again. But because they were closed over the weekend, they didn't see, or Bitcoin did, the crypto did a much bigger retracement over the weekend, whereas these have just sort of retraced a little bit on Monday and now are coming back up today with S&P on its way to test all-time high again. So crypto is kind of showing weakness compared to the stock market now. Which is interesting in itself. However, we have just hit my next level of interest. So again, per all my last streams, excuse the messy chart. So much for it being my high time frame chart. The first alert I had and that I talked about was going to be at this, I think it's 4-day demand in there actually. So yeah, this 4-day demand. But then I had said, obviously, there's so much mess below, and not only in this range, but also all the way down now because of obviously Bitcoin doing what it does best and going up without really testing anything. It then becomes a lot more challenging to sort of confirm what areas of interest I have for looking for. Take that line out now. Take those lines out now. For looking for bounces. So I had the most aggressive one was on this 4-day demand, and then we had a 2-weekly demand right in at the top there. We've got some wicks down here. I think this is a monthly low and going into monthly open is another possible area that we could have headed for a bottom. And then we have a 3-week demand in here, and then this 8-hour all the way at the bottom that hasn't been tested, and that's just the initial zone. And obviously, even within those zones, it can wick inside the zone. So it's not the 4 specific levels. It's basically this whole area. And one of the things I wanted to do was check what the fib was when the top was in, because I didn't want to faff around too much looking at the levels without knowing where the top was. So, and then I would have looked more specifically at the 61 fib. I think we're on the log chart now. The 61 fib on the linear chart is a little bit higher. So kind of between these two crosses. But anyway, we have now obviously started to have a bounce. However, we also have put in quite a lot of supply now. And so while we are, I should say we're still bullish locally. So obviously we're still in an uptrend, and this is still just a consolidation, whatever it does here, above this demand, which is holding that last up move. So we can put in supply, and you can look to short those supplies, but until we've broken local demand, made a lower low in the sort of bigger structure, then it's not strong demand. Sorry, it's not strong supply. And then, even arguably, like this is our last sort of significant up move. These are just sub waves within it. From there, significant up move. So really we need to break, deleting all those, down here for it to be a break of structure, of the macro structure. But what we obviously are seeing is signs of reversal, signs of a bigger correction, bigger consolidation at least. So now we just need to see what the reactions are as and when we retest these zones. So we did previously have a weekly supply, and I was looking for shorts in that weekly supply initially, and then obviously we took it out on a wick, which can happen. It's still a weekly supply, sure, but it's still a weekly supply because again, even back here, this was the weekly supply, hasn't broken demand. Well, let me just put my my mouse cursor on so you can see a bit better. But yeah, so this was weekly supply. So we had a short, an aggressive short just when it broke down, and another short which worked quite well. So all of these worked on the lower time frame. And then when we actually re-hit the weekly supply level, we didn't get much of a reaction. Then similarly, there was also a 2-hour supply up here, which hadn't been tested. So I had some good scalp shorts on this, but then obviously, ultimately, it took out the high when I was away from the keyboard. So since then, we've obviously come back and closed back below and created a new weekly supply. That's this large blue area. We've got a 3-day as well, this purple zone. And then I think we might have made a 2-day yesterday. I'm not sure if I put it in. Yeah, oh, sorry, no. So we have a 2-day up here, which was created at the same level as the weekly. And then this is just a daily level near price. So obviously we've still got all this to contend with. We did have a lot of liquidations above 120. I actually haven't checked that for a couple of days, so I'm not going to have a look at that in a minute. But at the moment, that's kind of was where I had alerted if we'd pushed higher from here and or made a higher low. I didn't look for long entries in here, mainly because this structure is just something I think I'm quite familiar with, where you think it's made a daily demand, but then it just runs straight through it. I don't know if I can find another example where it's done that, but it's a fairly common structure anyway. The way it's structured, but this is a fairly common structure. So just be careful when you see that. You know, the green, the red swing fail, and then the green candle straight up from there. I mean, it can come down. If it came down slowly, then maybe you'd look for longs on here, but it came down just a bit too fast. So therefore, I stuck with just the most immediate long being down here. As I speak, we have just created, so we had an 8-hour demand created in here, which hasn't been tested yet. And we've also now got an 8-hour demand just been created a few minutes ago at current price. So we could see a push just immediately now off up into here. Now, the difficulty we've got on the short side is that, so we've got so initially, well, I've had this alert provisionally again, 2-day and weekly supply at that level, which is what, 114,300. But obviously we've got a big CME gap that's significantly higher, so be conscious of that. On the CME, the only thing I was thinking is, if this is a top, it is possible we don't close that gap. So one thing I talked to the group about was the possibility of us rejecting, let's move that, delete that for the moment. But so we had this, we had this daily supply in here. This is something I talked about with the group last week as well. Like, I thought there was a fair chance we would take out. So when we closed this candle below, we made this daily supply that I've got marked here on the green candle. And again, the way that structure is something I'm used to, that I thought possibly we would swing fail the low, because we obviously had the level there that we were looking at on the US dollar chart. We would come back up through and potentially swing fail the high and then drop back down again. And in either order, like possibly I thought we could go up. I think at the point I was looking at it, it looked like we might go up first and then come down for the lower one. But in fact, it ended up going down first and then up. But it didn't swing fair. Obviously, then it closed up here on Friday, which then threw it off slightly. But because we've then opened now back below, I've like redrawn this zone as a possibility that it might reject in this zone. And that was why I had that circle, because it was something I pointed out to the group that maybe we would come back and find resistance in this area. But again, the CME gap's up here. So, and the idea behind that is that I know obviously a lot of people are going to be trading long up to the CME gap. And similarly, yeah, also just, I guess, so the expectation is going to go up there. And then if we have topped, there is a chance that it will just get left and it won't get filled. The thing that got slightly thrown off yesterday, so at that time that I made that analysis, there was only a $200 premium on CME against the usual pair. However, yesterday, you can see this little arrow down here, there was a contract switch on CME. And what that happens, and so then it rolls over the new contract into the old contract and into the chart, and you can use this. So down here on the bottom right, you've got this adjust the contract changes button. I don't use it adjusted because then it doesn't match what we're normally trading, which is the usual chart. So I've seen people use it, and I've seen, and I don't. I've seen somebody else, one other person, use it. But I don't know. For me, I tried kind of a little bit both sides, and then I've just thought there was more value in the keeping it and leaving the gaps. Basically, what happens is it takes the gaps off the chart, so it leaves the gap. So what we had here is when we had that contract changeover yesterday, we ended up leaving a gap up here, and as a result now, so we've got the current price that we've now got, so we've filled the gap. However, and I don't whether it's necessary, I don't know, but however, what has now happened is that we have a much bigger gap between the normal US dollar price and the CME price. So at the moment, it's closes 112.860 on CME, and it's 112.100 on the usual chart. So there's now like an $800 gap between the two. And then what happens when that happened is that then this doesn't align. So at the point I made this analysis and I said, okay, maybe CME will reject here and the US dollar pair will reject at the 2-day and weekly level, but now they don't align. So now obviously CME is already in this area, but the BTC pair or the usual pair is miles away from where I wanted it. However, it is just coming into that now new 3-day supply. But anyway, for now, I haven't done much more than that. That was the provisional level I was looking at. Obviously, it's the 2-day zone's big, and then the weekly zone's even bigger. So just need to see what the reaction is when we get there. Noting we're still in an uptrend. And I also feel like this is a structure. I need to find what's happened, but I feel like this type of structure, and then there's a roll off a cliff I've seen before, and I've got a sense that maybe it could do that and get up into that 120 area. So just check what the reaction is as we come into here. Also have a look, like I say, I haven't done any alignment with where the liquidations are, local liquidations at least, and obviously I know the CME gap's higher, and nor have I looked even at any of the data to know whether the CVDs are positive, like whether people are starting to buy back into this, or whether even this mini up move is being fueled a little bit by shorts. Are people piling in shorts here, in which case maybe we'll get a squeeze? Are they piling in longs, in which case maybe we'll get the drop down? Like those are the things that I would tend to look at that I haven't got to yet. But yeah, provisionally the 2-day supply here at 114,300, and kind of anywhere really in this area. Obviously watch the CME gap close if I'm completely wrong about it being filled. And then the 120k mark if we start to move up from here. Locally, I don't love that we haven't tested this level down here. So also just be conscious of maybe we're going to come up into this 3-day, come back down into there before going up, or even going up into here and come back down into that zone. But we shall see. So yeah, all the Confluence stuff that I normally do, like I say, I kind of haven't. So not as across it as I could be for doing a stream. So yeah, I probably didn't say at the start. Did I say at the start? I don't know. I'm going to Switzerland tomorrow for 5 days till Monday. So I probably won't get a chance to do another stream, hence why I want to do one now. But yeah, so those are the things I'm watching. I mean, there's nothing really beyond that. I'm giving you the entries, and this long entries work quite nicely. So pretty happy with that at the moment. And then just, as I say, if we start drifting down, there's other areas of interest. So the next one, just look for a swing fail to trade that. And then the 3-week, if you want to trade the 3-week level, just be conscious it's a 3-week zone, and therefore it might go significantly deeper in the zone. The other thing I think with Bitcoin just on the career pair is that note a lot of this move, and I've said this before, a lot of this move and the recent PA, I mean really since probably most of August, has been kind of down to TradFi. I think in that the career pair was weaker because the dollar was weaker, and then the dollar got some strength. So the dollar weakened on Friday, obviously with the drop, and then now it's bounced back quite hard. And then as a result, we see more strength in the BTC career pair, and the BTC US dollar pair has weakened because the dollar's growing stronger, if that makes sense. So structurally, what we're seeing now on the career pair is obviously it's a bit stronger. The US dollar pair is in that 4-day demand, which on the career pair is all the way back down here. So some of these differences in structures are due to those differences across the triangulation of all the pairs. So the career pair also has a weekly supply. It's probably a little bit higher than where the Bitcoin one is. Yeah, it's actually quite a lot higher. So again, like if you're following me and you do the Confluence that I do, so the difference there, these are you can use these as and when if we get to these particular levels. So it would be a 2% rise to the weekly supply on the US dollar pair based on current price, but it would be a 2.5% rise to get to the weekly supply on the career pair, for example. Therefore, you may not want to trade the US dollar pair immediately when it gets to there if the Confluence isn't there from the career pair. Now it's a little bit challenging because obviously we have the 3-day supply in there, and we've also, both of them have the 2-day. The 2-day is a little bit lower on the career pair, etc., etc. But just look for that Confluence so that we're kind of aligned. And if everything's aligned when you're trading, when you're looking for, particularly for bigger shorts, like scalps you could get potentially from any level, because you could get a scalp short off the US dollar pair, but then ultimately everything pushes it a little bit higher into the zone, and then the career pair hits later. But yeah, it's when you get the alignment is when you tend to get the bigger moves. So if we are going to get a bigger short, wait for that alignment. On US dollar dominance, a little bit challenging. So all the market cap charts, which I'll get to in a minute as well, they're just a little bit challenging, as well as US dollar dominance, because they're kind of still messing around, really. So we're in this massive 6-month zone on US dollar tether dominance, and I think USDC as well. We bounced off that initially when I had the first alert on there, came down a bit deeper, bounced off it, went up and hit 3-week supply. I was hoping for a hit on monthly supply, but we didn't get quite as much retracement on Bitcoin at that point. Then we came down lower, and we made a weekly supply, but just by a hair. We came down lower, did reject off that, came down lower and hit this 3-day zone inside the 6-month, or the bigger 6-month, and then there's a local monthly here. At the same time, I think USDC hit 6-month demand or 2-month demand. So let me check. So USDC, which is a bit of a cleaner chart, also I've got less stuff on it, hit a 3-month. Is that a 3-month demand? Yeah. So you can see it hit this 3-month. Move my stuff. So you can see it hit this 3-month demand in here, and it's also been a bigger 6-month. So that was a little bit cleaner. So from a high time frame perspective, these are somewhere I would look for noms. However, they take some time. They're going to take some time to accumulate, consolidate. You can see here also, so USDC it didn't have the same 3-week supply that the tether pair has made. However, it has now come up and hit this 3-week supply, which it hadn't previously when the tether pair did. So there's some, again, misalignment between these pairs. So I really want to see kind of, what we do towards the end of the week. So this is now rejected off that 3-week supply, so it could just drop straight back through. However, if it holds up here for long enough, then it very well might make a weekly or 2-weekly demand below. And then I'd potentially be more bullish, because really, so the structure on this, I did the lines that I had here was when I was having a discussion about it a few weeks ago. And I was sort of saying that, with this being a 6-month demand, that really this green line, that we've retraced back into 6-month demand, that really a green line is that continuation of the uptrend. And that, in fact, I think, it really should be the highest probability from here. The black line I would consider sort of next highest probability, that we're, in this 6-month demand, and that we go up, not necessarily all the way to the top, to be fair. We have actually only come up into here. But at this point, I would think maybe we would come up higher, maybe we reject somewhere in here, or maybe all the way to the top. And then we get a bigger drop down into this lower zone, which is also untested. Alternatively, if crypto is going to be going bull and we're having alt season and Bitcoin's still going to go to 170k, then maybe we would see this red line and just drift down into this zone. And we've already come quite deep in this 6-month demand, so it's a little bit of a challenging one. But yeah, you just got to assess the zones as and when they're hit. So now we're in a kind of an immediate downtrend, retracing this up move. We could come down into here. So again, this green and these bottoms are just sort of broadly in this area. I didn't mean there was a specific bottom here or here. But yeah, at the moment we are still in a bit of a local downtrend, so we could still end up doing this to get down to deeper inside this monthly zone. But while we're in the monthly already, I wouldn't really want to preempt that. We've also had an ABC down, so maybe it's time for some consolidation before a next move up. So go back to the tether chart. So the tether chart isn't normally what I'd use, but I think USDC, actually, well, I don't know what the percentages are. So tether is in the 4% for dominance. Yeah, and USDC is still half that, 2%. So you can either use that. So tether should be more important in the bigger picture. And most things are still traded against tether. Or I occasionally use this amalgamated one, which adds tether, USDC, and DAI together. It's 6%. But really, I mean, they're broadly the same, but the structures are differing very slightly at the moment with USDC. So anyway, what we have similarly on the tether chart is that we've hit this 6-month zone. We've hit a monthly inside it. We're kind of in a local downtrend, but this is now just a consolidation. And I saw somebody saying, oh, maybe this is an inverse head and shoulders. I mean, it's possible, but it's a bad inverse head and shoulders, because really you want to see a sloping up neckline. You probably wouldn't want this to retrace quite so deep. That makes it less good for me, but yes, it's possible. Structurally, that's what happens if we can make a higher low here. The other thing, if you're looking at head and shoulders, etc., or any patterns, you should always look at volume, because the volume should support what you're seeing. And what you really want to see is, and the head is less of an issue, I find, but really what you want to see is less volume, selling volume in the head than in the left shoulder. Because what you want to say that's the big sell-off, and then this is just a weaker sell-off. So in this case, you see we've still got quite a lot of selling volume, but then we do have quite a lot of buying volume come back in. That's good. And then similarly on the second leg, you really want to see volume die off, and then once it starts to go green, really big green volume coming in if you're trading that as that pattern. And really just it's not something you can go and Google that and look and try and learn it, but just try and think of the logic if you're trying to assess whether a pattern is going to work, or a cup and handle, or any triangles or anything like that. Just really try and think about what it's trying to tell you. This is telling you there's a big sell-off. It's telling you that we've had a push up, but it's not a very strong push. So the sellers are still there. They come back in, they take out the low, but they weaken off at the end. Then you want to see the buyers getting keen. So you want to see good volume on the coming out of the head. And then you really want to see weak volume so the second half of the pattern to me is more important with the head and shoulders. You want to see weak selling volume in the secondary drop. And then obviously buyers kick back in at this point for that bigger push. So it's all possible, but structurally, again, it's a little bit difficult. We have monthly supply, and here we've already rejected off a 3-week, and we made a local 3-week. Sure, we went up pretty high in it, but we are still in 3-week supply here. So a weak 3-week supply, but at the moment, the trend is still sideways / down. We've got the down here, but it's still sideways locally. We haven't had a break that's pushed up out of this 3-week. And even if we do, we're going to have the monthly supply immediately above. So again, very challenging, and just not very clean at the moment. So on that basis, for me, it's just, again, I might prefer this anyway. It's just trading both directions. All my alerts come in on the alts and everything. It's up, down, up, down. If you see a clean zone, and it's becoming a little bit harder. It's becoming a little bit harder because everything's in these sort of triangles, and I'll get to that on the majors. Yeah, either way. So when the triangles have had 5 or 6 hits on them, you really want to be careful and just kind of wait till they break. Anyway, so that's US dollar dominance. Just watching really here for what local demand is being built. It would have been nice if this push up here had broken the 3-week supply, but maybe we'll get a secondary push. We'll see, but it's in a bit of an indecisive type area at the moment, and particularly now locally with Bitcoin having made that 8-hour demand. This has now got an 8-hour supply, so we're going to get a drop back into here. On the total market cap charts, again, sort of equally challenging, and really just trying to decide what they're doing. One thing I haven't covered actually is, which I did in previous streams, is that comparison to 2020, 2021, which I think I did talk about in the last stream or the last video. But that's, yeah, maybe I'll go to that because that's kind of important. So one of the reasons I'm looking very much for the possibility of a reversal on Bitcoin at this point is some of the comparisons that we've got to 2021 PA. So at this point in time, and again, I'll just do, I think I have talked about it quite a lot in previous streams, so it's a quick summary. So at this point in time, when we came up, we had this run here, which took out the high on a swing failure. And at that point, the career pair hadn't taken out the high. So then we had a little fall, a few weeks of sideways, and then a second push, which took out the high. And that's pretty much what's happened here. Like structurally, this was just a swing failure. This has actually come up much higher. But what we did have is a second run. So we had this consolidation from back in May and June, took out the high on the US dollar pair. But at that point, I think maybe even all of them, like not just the career pair, but I think also the pound pair, the euro, etc. None of them had taken out this high, this previous high. So we had this then second run. And like I say, a lot of this is fueled by the weakness in the dollar. So therefore, I put it like a green sheet behind me to try and make the camera a bit clearer, but I can see it keeps appearing on the camera, so that obviously that plan didn't work very well. But aren't you supposed to use green for, isn't that the green screen thing? My limited knowledge of videography. Anyway, so yeah, so then we had this run here when we had some weakness in the dollar, which then pushed BTC US dollar higher. And then we also saw finally BTC Korea come up and take out the high, which is pretty much what happened here. And while it does, obviously, it looks a bit different, there are also similarities that I see. Try and find another chart so I can actually draw on it better. Let's use this one. This does have some drawings, but less than my main chart. Yeah, so you can see if we go to 3-day. It's much smaller here, the volatility is less. Actually, the weekly is a bit clearer. So you can see we had this structure here where we made a weekly supply, we rejected off it, we came back lower, and then we just went straight back up through it. And it's quite similar here. This is smaller, but it made a weekly supply. And I think maybe in this case, I think it just paused before it went straight up through it, and made a new high. So the similarities in that structure, the similarities in the taking out of the previous high, so in this case, slightly more aggressively, and then having pulled another swing failure of this and flipping the weekly. Obviously, we're in this larger area, so this is my bigger picture projection. We're in this between the linear 161 and the log 161, which is somewhere I've had marked for a while, and so it's a wide 100 to 170k range for possible rejection. Then I did this, the 113 to 127 fib extension for a failed wave off this wave, and we're in that slap bang in that box as well. There's other similar things. So let me show you for example, so we've got Ether, which I'll get to in a minute in detail, but obviously Ether has pumped now. The other thing that happened here is this run is when Ether and Ether BTC moved back in 2021. So we've got that Ether pump. And then we have MicroStrategy. So again, back in 2021, if you look at the structure of this, is relatively similar to what's going on here. And in both cases, so what we did have is we got a monthly demand in here, and you can see that candle there, then closed down below, and this still did push a little bit more, but then eventually, even though it had a monthly demand, a weak monthly demand, it ran straight through it. And we pretty much have the same here. I mean, this is again, structure is a bit different. We have monthly and 3 monthly demand a bit lower, but it also had a monthly demand here, this red candle. So it did close above there, it tested it, but then it was unable to go higher and now is falling back down again. So again, the difficulty, off again, not the difficulty, but the similarity is there with this potentially rolling over here in the similarity in structure when we made this top over here. So yeah, just things to be aware of, and this is why I'm looking maybe slightly more aggressively for shorting than I have done previously. But again, we still need some time. We still need structures to play out and see this demand test even a micro strategy. I feel like there's other things, not so much on BTC dominance. I feel like there's other similarities as well, but those are the key ones. So we'll just leave it at that for the moment. Go back to my normal chart. Yeah. But yeah, so that's why I'm looking more at, is this going to be a top? Are we going to see a bit of distribution in here? So on the total market cap chart, so again, we still have got this has made a 3-week demand just below price. It's not a great one with being on a bit of a doji there. It's a long-legged doji. It's got a 2-week at current price, which is just testing now, and even a weekly. So these are not strong zones. Like it's still, obviously it's just in a consolidation through here, but at the moment the structure is still supporting the long side. So I just want to again see what happens if this 3-week gets tested and just a little bit more PA through here. Total 2 I think is pretty much the same. I think it doesn't have, so some of them have the 3-week demand, others don't. So this doesn't have a 3-week demand, but it did have a 2-week. It's tapped into there and obviously is moving up on the strength of Ether being stronger. So that's, yeah, still struggling to break all-time high. Hasn't quite got there yet on total 2, but again, still in an uptrend. But still, now having had sort of the third 5-day candle of 15 days of sideways, while it's trying to figure out if it's actually going to break out here or not. But still positioned reasonably well, apart from the fact that obviously we're at supply, so we need to be careful. Total 3, pretty much the same. I think this also didn't make a 3-week demand, so obviously we've had the majors be stronger than most of the other alts. It's got a 2-week demand, it's by a hair. It's holding it, came down. I think, again, I did talk a little bit about this in my last stream. We had on all of these, we had 5-day demand and then a 2-day inside. So I think some of them have come all the way down and tested the 2-day. The total 3 has been a bit stronger. It's holding the 5-day, but again, still holding this uptrend and this upward channel. We just need to see what's going to happen through here. Is it going to be just going to get a consolidation, or are we going to get a fall back to test some of these lower zones? Now, others being obviously one of the weaker ones, this also did make a 3-week demand down here. So there are some signs possibly of alt season, or maybe having an alt season, if we are to believe that 2021 is going to be what's going to happen now. And for me, there's a lot of pros and cons along that. So typically we talk about the rotation from Bitcoin to Ether to alts. Or to the majors, large caps, and then small caps. So obviously we have had the rotation from Bitcoin to Ether. The large caps have kind of been running alongside, but whether we're going to get a rotation into those like more strongly, I'm not sure. Then do we get the rotation to others? The problem we have on others is there are so many now. There are so many more alts than we've had previously. I also have some reservations as to the rotation in that. So rotation previously has just been you and me and every retail trader, maybe a few institutions, but not many, and miners, if you call them institutions, they would potentially rotate to altcoins. But I don't believe people who are buying ETFs are going to rotate to altcoins, except maybe if there are ETFs of said altcoins like Solana, and I think AVAX was announced the other day for Grayscale. So are we going to see an alt season for all altcoins, or are we just going to continue what I've been talking about many times before, that we're just going to have random alts running here and there and then doing full retrace, and money, just small amounts of money just runs between multiple alts, but in sort of groups of them, whatever few feel like running in a particular day. And I'm not seeing anything counter to that at the moment. However, obviously now, if we're going to get that rotation, now would be the time. So yeah, it's worth considering, and there are some signs, I'll get onto dominance in a minute, but there are some signs on dominance that may happen. But it's still taking its time and being pretty early days. So anyway, for now, we do have 3-week demand in here. So it would be kind of what I would like to see. This has hit 5-day. It's just come deeper into this. Did hit the 2-day inside the 5-day that I just referred to on total. So found a low there. But I wouldn't mind this seeing just what this does a little bit lower if we can get a move down into 3-week here. And then obviously we've got monthly demand below. So even if this doesn't hold, or maybe we're going to move up from here. But this, again, there's the time that if we're going to see alt season, now's the time. Total DeFi has been stronger anyway, and something I've talked about again multiple times. The structure on the dominance pair for total DeFi was much more interesting than on others. And so I talked about that previously, and so I'm not surprised we've had more of an extended move on this. We had things like ARV being on 6-month demand, etc. So this has run a bit more strongly. This, I think, also didn't make 3-week demand, but does already have 2-week in there, which again, it's tested. So as you can see, we're still getting some consolidation on all these charts at the highs. I'm inclined to look for short entries because we're at resistance. However, there's nothing on local structure we haven't broken any demand on local structure yet. Total E100, again, we have my chart, which has all the historic zones before TradingView saw it fit to remove all the history, and apparently aren't putting it back. This remains still weaker. So as we've seen with all those, so we've got total is the strongest, followed by total 2, total 3, followed by DeFi. Well, DeFi is probably comparable to total 3. And then others, and then now the total E100 is excluding the top 100 coins, and this is significantly weaker, although you can't see because of the lack of history. But what we have here is this is still in a triangle structure. You can see I had the lines for if this was going to get into a channel structure like the others chart. So you can see others went into a channel here. It made a higher high at this point. Total E100 has not made a higher high, so it's still, or it might have made a higher high, but just by a hair, like a swing failure. But if the history was there, this is still in a bearish triangle. So that's the concern. Went back too far with my, why it's not removing my lines. So, but again, and this also, so did this make a 3-week? I think this might, so it kind of made a 3-week, but literally by, again, very, very, very small margins, so not really a tradable 3-week demand there. So it's still, again, maybe nice to see this come back down into the weekly. So I don't know, the market cap charts don't really support the being alt season. However, if I then look at the dominance charts, let's go straight to others dominance. Again, it's just very difficult. It's very, very tight price action. So I had this highlighted last week as possibility of creating this triangle, but you can see it's kind of gone up through the triangle, but then it's come back down into the triangle. So I don't know if it's just not ready or it's now kind of moving into more of a rectangular consolidation. It's a difficult one for me because I did want it lower. But then also I need to remember is this whole grey area is an annual demand, so it doesn't have to go down to where I want it to go down. And there's not really very clear, not a very clear demand down here anyway, but I did want this a bit lower. But again, now has made 3-week demand. So again, the challenge is we're coming off 3-week demand. There's already 3-week supply at the high. We've got 3-week demand below, and then a whole bunch of 5 days, and that's why the pink lines and blue lines, 5 days down to dailies inside here. So it's still trying to push. But again, I wouldn't mind seeing this testing into that 3-week and then seeing if we can get some decent reaction off it. It's still, we've got local supply here if we're going to still make a lower high, and then 2 monthly supply a little bit above. So I don't necessarily think this is going to be some massive alt season like akin to 2021. But maybe I'm wrong, and I look at this and people say these things to me, and it's hard because, when we were down here, would we have thought, I mean, yes, with hindsight, it's very easy to say, yes, I would have assumed this was going to go up at that point. But if, you were really just looking at the chart like this, in this case, it's made a lower high, it's a big range, you might think it's just going to visit the bottom of the range here, and then suddenly it just takes off. So it is possible that the same happens here. Again, get a big takeoff. There are probably some differences. I mean, this has got, I think monthly has 6 monthly. I believe it's got 6 monthly supply, and many of the alts have 6 monthly supply. Move some of my stuff so you can see, but yeah, there's a 6 monthly supply up here. There's a 6 monthly level in there. So again, the structure is very different to 2021. So it makes me, yeah, but you know, even if we did get a move all the way up to here, that's probably fairly significant alt season. Maybe not as a not 2021 alt season, but it's still a fairly significant alt season. So we've got a couple of months of up now. So let's just see. So the critical thing for me is obviously breaking out this 3-week supply, but also seeing a bounce on this 3-week demand here. So that's the most important thing on others dominance. Total DeFi dominance, similar. Again, the difficulty now, obviously this pushed a lot higher. Like I say, it was on a much better demand down here anyway, but is now up in 2 months supply. So again, I don't know if this is going to be done or if this is going to hold weekly demand there, 2 weekly a little bit below for another push and another run up into there. But there's still a chance of that happening. But again, very much at decision point. So I wouldn't necessarily be buying DeFi now. I'm not sure what DeFi do, when we go into alt season. Are they more like the majors and they're more likely to just consolidate sideways before the whole market's ready to drop? Yeah, so again, we'll just have to see, but I'd be less inclined to buy DeFi now. I would think you should buy, even though they have been stronger historically, either wait for this come down to do a proper retest down here somewhere, or just look at the total E100, like look at the real shit coins and see if those are having structures that are good to look for longs on. Ether dominance. Oh, sorry, it's just finally on total E100 dominance. So that's the other thing here. Again, this is similar to total DeFi in that it is in this 2-weekly demand at the base. But again, hoping for a double bottom, last week. Again, we did have 2 kind of good candles last week, but again, unable to break supply. So this could still have double bottom, and then again, we may see an alt season. But at the moment, it's not really showing any signs. At this point, it could still descending triangle and just fall down. So we need to see either a decent green candle breaking through here or a decent red candle for more confidence on this. But again, I'm just conscious that we're getting a consolidation through here, which is getting pretty close to being ready to break one way or the other. Yeah, so then BTC dominance, which obviously didn't cover before. So another thing I've talked about with the group about this fall that we had here, and I think I actually didn't time it necessarily as well as I could have done because I was doing the analysis pretty quickly. But yeah, so the alt season we had in 2021 was March to May pretty much. So it was some of this drop, but then some of the end of this drop was also money flowing into US dollar. So at least it was the beginning of it, and a lot of it happened here. And the problem we have, and similar, is if we compare this to 2021, I should note when I say compare this to 2021, actually one of the other issues is that so this is the bigger issue I had with this. Here we go. So when I say 2021, so we had a high on Bitcoin. Go back to that chart quickly. 2021. So we had this first high in March to May, and then we had the second high in November. So part of the problem I have with comparing BTC dominance and alt season is the first high that we had and the real push was here. So if we're having an alt season that aligns with what Bitcoin's doing, it's done. And if I'm right in that we're actually kind of trying to mimic the November top, then we're here already on dominance. But this just bears no resemblance to that. So perhaps I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong and we're going to see this move now where, we really get a massive drop on dominance and that's really alts running. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for. And then I'm wrong about this being that second top, the November top. Or perhaps I'm just wrong entirely and it just said the patterns just really aren't similar. But like I say, the similarities are there for me, so it's a tough one. But dominance doesn't really support that. But then having said that also, I don't think any of this really bears any resemblance to any of the previous history on BTC dominance. So we'll see. Anyway, this is now, it's coming off 6 months supply. It's made a new monthly supply. We're going to get the 2-month close actually as well on everything in the next, 4 days. And on alts, I'm saying a real mix. Some are going to make 2-month supply or 1-month supply. And quite a few also are going to make 1 month, 2 month demand. So again, that still supports these. Some alts are going to be bullish and some are going to be bearish. And I don't think it doesn't support there being an alt season where everything runs regardless and you can just buy anything and be up. Yeah, so here, obviously we had a significant drop here. The only thing with this is that you would sort of think we're going to have at least some consolidation or a retest of some sort. And again, even if I was to compare it to here, I guess this had quite a significant move down, and then a lot of sideways first. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. I'm quite interested anyway, just to see how this all plays out. Like, I mean, all this information is very useful to have, but really in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. You still want to buy, demand, sell, supply. But it's just, again, for confidence and also for knowing whether to hold a bit longer, whether you want to, try and get a tight scalp kind of entry with a tight stop, but then actually hold it as if all season's coming. It's kind of good to know that if possible. And it's just a challenging area at the moment. Or maybe it's always just challenging. Mixed analysis. Ether Dominance is probably the cleaner one. It's just hit 6 months supply. So again, it's got another 6 month inside it. We're at this lower sort of 6 month. We're at the 61 fib type area. We've had all of that with very little retracement. So again, back over here, we did have like significant pullbacks in 2020 and 2021 before this, whereas this time it's just been one up. I would like a pullback. Obviously now we are finally at like a fairly significant level. Yes, we may go higher inside this zone, but we are at a fairly significant level. So I would be quite careful and conscious of your Ether longs at the moment. If BTC does decide to bounce and BTC dominance comes up, then it's possible that obviously Bitcoin, that's the Ether US dollar can still run, but this can still potentially go sideways or drop. So it doesn't necessarily, this being at resistance doesn't necessarily mean the US dollar pair is going to fall. It just means that the chances are now, if they do fall, then Ether's going to fall more than Bitcoin. Or they can still continue to go up, but BTC. So if you're looking for longs and you're more confident of longs, at this point I would suggest you buy Bitcoin, not Ether. But if you're looking for shorts and you're trying to get in on the short side, then I'd be more inclined to short Ether at this point. So yeah, that's worth considering. I think that's pretty much all I want to say for the market as a whole. Like I say, there's lots of information there, but lots of indecision on my part and on the market's part. And I just want to stick to trading zones as and when they're hit. So summary on Bitcoin has got that weekly supply in there. It's a giant zone, weekly and 2 days, so that we can look for shorts at the start of there. CME gaps higher, and then the 120k did have a lot of liquidations above it, may or may not now. I should probably look at that quickly. You find quickly look at some of this data. Where are the liquidations? So many windows open. So you can see now, obviously, we've got a lot more local liquidation. So the lower time frame is the 24-hour chart. So now, obviously, we're looking at liquidations at the 113 mark. So we need to zoom out to a higher time frame to see the liquidations higher up. In fact, it's not even really getting up to the 120. So 117, there's some decent liquidations. just under 116. Yeah, so this is why I kind of thought this is going to take more time to really think about where those levels could be that we see rejection. And you can see here just under 120 actually is where we've really got significant liquidations. So if you want to be safe and sensible, then just wait and see if we get a wick up to 120. Your stop should still be above the high, but could be significantly tighter than if you're trying to aggressively short down here. Obviously, it might take a few days, weeks to get there. We need to just see what PA builds up between now and then. Yeah, so one other thing actually, again, why I'm being more aggressive. So if I go back to this comparison to 2021, few things to be aware of. So this was a 3-week demand here. So note that when this did decide to come and fall off a cliff and test, it went all the way almost to the bottom of it, down here. So again, if we compare this to now, where I've got the equivalent of this level, then this level, then this level, do bear in mind you've got that level all the way down the bottom that hasn't been tested. So we could see something similar to this. So that's one thing to be conscious of. Similarly here, you can see that we've got it had a daily supply here. There. The mouse isn't working properly. So you can see we had a daily supply in here. Zoom in a bit. And this is where it becomes tough when you're trying to preempt it. So I'm not looking at all different time frames at this point, but you can see we have a daily supply up here and we had a daily supply here. This one remained untested until 3 years later, 2 years later. So with my more aggressive thoughts on potentially not filling the CME gap, the weekly being lower, if a lot of people are waiting, so even back here, I probably would have been the same. You learn your lesson, you're waiting for a short up here and it never gets given. When price is ready to fall, particularly if it's doing a stop hunt of the high, it's not going to let out people who longed in here who are trapped. It just wants to fall and just to get away from that. So that's one of the reasons I'm being a little bit more aggressive. Delete those now. One of the reasons I'm being a little bit more aggressive here is that obviously the structure is different. We don't have the same daily, but if this in fact has tested the higher zones. But if this does want to fall here, is it going to go back and take out those liquidations at 120 that everybody expects it to go back for? Is it going to come back and fill this CME gap that everybody expects it to go back for? So I have one kind of thought that if it's ready to go down, it won't go back there. It might get to here, but I wouldn't like to see it get much higher than there. If it does go all the way back up here, unless I really see a significant fall off, then I think we're probably still bullish. So obviously we need to judge it as and when we hit, but these are my kind of provisional thoughts on Bitcoin. How long am I going for? How do I manage to do an hour? Well, it's just an hour on the market as a whole. Just quickly on Ether then. So I haven't really added much new on this previously. So in my last stream, I talked about Ether BTC. I said we had these two. So I had the smaller circles. So I was looking for the possibility of a swing fail. So here, so these I think were monthly highs. One of these was a monthly high. So that was my first, maybe we'll take out this monthly high and reject here. But then I also commented that we had sort of trend line stops here, and obviously it's not that clean or clear. But I said, so I then drew the larger circle saying we could have a wick that takes out the trend line stops, taking out this high as well. And that's what's ended up happening. So we're getting on a nice rejection in my area, however, not gone very far as yet, still very early days. So now, not even made any, so we've really just got a 12-hour supply in here at the moment. Obviously, we have the Ether Dominance pair at 6-month supply as well, so we've got Confluence with that. The 6-month on the BTC pair is a lot higher. So it's all the way up here, and it's kind of 2-month and 3-month, but the structure on Ether BTC is just a little bit different to what we have on the Dominance. So Dominance, I think these candles are much lower, so hence we're at 6-month supply, whereas for whatever reason, this is a lot higher. So, if this still wants to run up to 6-month supply, it's got plenty of space. If Ether is really going to run against Bitcoin further. But again, we're now in an area that I would potentially look for short, to look for a retracement, wait until at least it comes down into that area or that area to look for getting back into longs. So obviously we've got the month-end month close coming up. At the moment, we are in a breakout of that monthly supply, so that's about that level there. But is this going to close with a big swing failure of this monthly supply? So we need to see what the next 4 days bring. Obviously, the US dollar pair has just broken all-time high. The Korea pair is a lot higher than all-time high. It's kind of broken out and it seems to be holding the breakout at the moment. CME hasn't quite taken out all-time high and has let the CME close the gap a little bit higher. So again, just need to see a bit more on this for now. While I'm obviously still bullish on this, I did put an alert here so that the Ether, if you follow me, know that, or if you do your own analysis, that Ether very much likes the 61 fib. So I have alerted while there is, so if we look at the 12-hour, so this is my low time frame chart, so there's a lot more on it, but if we look at the 12 hours, so the 12-hour level here, and then a 12-hour supply a little bit higher in there, and then the CME gap significantly higher. I have alerted a little bit lower on this because it's got the 61 fib there, and Ether does like the 61 fib when it's retracing. And I think tend to be more on the short side than on the long side. So anyway, I have alerted here just the possibility of a short a little bit higher, and it does have that 12-hour a bit higher inside it. On the low, again, just what I think I've talked about in the last stream. So I was looking initially for a stop hunt of this zone with that where that crosses, so possibly with a wick down into the next 4-hour demand below there. So obviously, so now a really nice entry on that 4-hour demand there. Then I wanted a long entry here. So again, I did alert. The alert went for, I think it's 2-hour demand in there. There's 2-hour and hourly demand in there. I had my arrow a little bit lower again because the 61 fib was a little bit lower. Unfortunately, didn't quite hit that level, but I know people in the group did manage to get longs in there. Obviously, then it blasted through various short possibilities I had, and something I also commented about on the last stream, that it was unclear through here, and I thought that it could run through everything if it wanted to, and then it did. And then again, did go back and do a second swing failure of the alert for taking out all-time high. So yeah, that's Ether. Bitcoin, yeah, low time frame. This is just for transparency more than anything. I didn't talk about this earlier, so talked about getting the swing fail. Oh, so I did actually, one thing I hadn't updated from the previous stream is that while I was looking for that long entry on this demand here, for getting, and then once I kind of thought there was a lot of people looking for the swing failure here, I said it's worth looking there for the swing failure and on a wick down into the zone just below. So the wick came later, but did give it a scalp off there. Coming back down for that 4-day demand below, and then similarly the shorts off the highs. I put this as a provisional. Maybe we'd get a rejection for a scalp on the 12-hour there, but this Friday move pushed it straight back up into the one that I'd highlighted on the high time frame chart anyway as being the more critical area for looking for shorts. Right, so that's Bitcoin and Ether. Quickly light a cigarette. Not got anybody here watching me today, really. A few people popping in and then leaving again. And no questions, but I guess that's probably a good thing because that means I get through things a little bit faster. I'll move on quickly onto the majors. So I feel like I always say like I haven't looked at these in a massive amount of detail. I think I look at these so much. I look at them every day. So sometimes that's fine, but sometimes I can then get lost in. There's just too much analysis and there's too many charts. I'm looking at too many charts and I can't go back and look at all the high time frames and just be sure that I'm in the direction of trend, etc. So I haven't really added much. Some of them have come down and hit zones that we've talked about before. Others haven't, because for now I'm just like, I feel like so many of them have got these sort of extended moves, and well, so we've got TRX, BCH, Ripple, obviously with sort of extended moves on various time frames. Then we've got a bunch of the others are just in triangles where they've hit both sides 15 times, and it became, I just need to see them break. We're kind of at the point now, it's like, is this going to break down? So TRX, so yeah, and the other thing is I was looking for, so we've got a few long entries that have hit, and I added a couple of shorts, which you won't have seen unless you're in the group, which went pretty well. But again, still need to see demands break if I'm going to be bearish. Now, TRX is a really bad example because this is just like very, very extended. So here, yes, arguably we have a break of structure. We've come down into a significant demand here. So it's a little bit too early on this for me. We could still just be in this type of scenario. Doesn't have to break down entirely from here. And a lot of them are kind of similar. Like a lot of them have, so this has got 3-day supply. A lot of them have 3-day supply. This has got a daily kind of a level a bit above it and a 12-hour at the top. So a lot of the majors have 3-day supplies, new 3-day and new 2-day supplies. And then some of them have new 3-week demand. So again, there's that indecision for me anyway of like which direction I should trade these. And I just need to see a bit more play out because I don't want to long into a 3-day supply, but then I don't want to short unless we've broken structure. So yesterday I was looking at them and I did add short entries locally on, I think, only TRX and BCH, which is possibly foolish because they're two of the stronger ones. But the others just don't really look clean enough for me. So, and also I kind of stopped and I just sort of thought, well, I'll leave these two since I put them there and we'll see. So anyway, TRX come down and hit my local entry for a long, but now is back up in this 3 days supply. So are we going to get a bigger retrace here? Not sure. I was looking for this 4 hours, a huge 4-hour zone up here for the next kind of higher time frame zone of interest, but it may not get there. So it's hard to say. So I've added this alert for 12, for a short possibly on that 12-hour supply there, and we shall see. I think it's add an alert for a long on this actually. So, and then again, something on TRX is hard. You know, is it going to bounce here on the 5-day? You know, there's various 5 days. I think it just front ran that entry at this 5-day here. Out of the way now. Or is it going to now retrace all the way down to the 2-week or to the monthly demand? Are we going to have like a big, significant retracement? Where we take out a lot of these stops is the difficulty with something like this. So, and or is this a top? You know, do I even want to think about where we're going to retrace to all the way down here when it hasn't even broken local structure yet? But yeah, provisionally, I think we'll be looking at 2-week demand or monthly demand down here. It looks like it's going to be it's a 3-month demand down there actually. So certainly I'd look for longs if we come back and test this. So you can put stink bids down there if you do see if we're going to get a wick on TRX, and then look around the 20 to 25 cents area. And we shall see. So that's TRX. Now BCH. So like I say, BCH is not dissimilar to TRX. Like it's not as strong, obviously, but has this horribly messy move up that just makes me think it's not very strong. But again, the challenge is when I say that it's not very strong, you know, we do have, and this is not the same, but, you know, we do have other instances where we've got what appears to not be very strong moves up, if suddenly followed by a giant green handle. So we need to see. BCH is one of the ones I started to be slightly more aggressive on shorting, just because BCH is quite clean and tends not to mess around with levels as much. I think I told you I had an aggressive long here on the last stream, which I didn't expect to work, but I was hoping it would get into this short entry. So I added that short entry in there for a 12-hour supply, which worked pretty nicely for the drop down into here. And I haven't had a new long entry on this, still in 2-week demand. And I think now, obviously, this looks like it has a 3-week. I know that's just a level incorrect notation. My apologies. So it's got 2-week demand here that's just bounced off. And it's got a weekly a bit lower that it's already tested. So again, like I don't really want to look for shorts now if we're bouncing off this 2-week demand. It's a weak 2-week demand, same as what we see on a lot of the market cap charts. It's a weak demand, but I don't want to short into that. So on a lot of the majors now, I'm going to look at, so this has got, you can see it might make a 5-day supply. So we've got, I think, a day and a half left to see if we create new 5-day or 4-day supply. If we create a 5-day supply, I will be more inclined to look for shorts on this, and it applies to all of the majors. 4-day, maybe, as well, a little bit lower. I think that 4-day is already a 2-day. So we've already got a 3-day in there as well, so you can see, but some of these have gone quite far up into the 3-day now. BCH hasn't gone very far. It's got a 2-day level there as well, so you can see that kind of messiness we've got, plus coupled with 2-week demand on the base. So just want to leave this alone at the moment. I did have an alert here for 12-hour supply. So yeah, like I say, I did add new alerts on TRX and BCH only, but this one is even more sort of tenuous really. But if we are going to manage to make some sort of a downtrend on here, but I'd really prefer this entry, you know, if we drop it lower first. Because again, now, you know, just structurally, even if I ignore the mess in the other waves, you know, we've got one wave and we're just retracing it with an ABC. This could now just run through. So we'll see what reaction we get there, particularly coming off 2-week demand. Actually, now even when I say it, I don't know why I have that. It's not, doesn't make that bland, because delete it later. A little more skeptical of that one on BCH there. Litecoin, it's been a bit like my nemesis lately. So I think I talked about in the last stream, I had an aggressive short there, which with hindsight I knew was stupid because there were stops up here that I thought would be taken, which did get taken. Then I was looking for, are we going to still get longs and get another push up to take more stops above here, or the double top we have here, or go up into monthly supply. So again, like there's still a drive for things I can see for Litecoin here and others to go higher. It's just a question of how much retracement, are we in a scenario where we're now here and we're going to at least get this significant retracement potentially down to here in the interim? Or are we still in this type of scenario where we're still just going to now just do another green move straight up, in this case, 3 hits to the high before this starts happening, or before we get a major move down like that, for example. So those are kind of my indecision. They are really very choppy. So yeah, Litecoin, I did also throw an alert for a 12-hour supply in here, which obviously it then wicked through with the messing around the price had on Sunday when CME opened. This I've already got an alert for possibility if we got up to 12-hour supply up there, wasting far too many alerts on this, and if we take out those highs. So that's what I'm looking at for the short side. And for the long side, we've got, I think, 4-day, 5-day demand there, and then a monthly demand below. So really, I would like to see a kind of bigger move down. But again, still in 2-week demand, so I just need to see whether this 2-week demand breaks before really making a judgment on this. XRP, not dissimilar again. So this is obviously more bullish than a lot of the other majors. This is it's still making a triangle, and still need to see which way it's going to break. So I kept thinking on this that I would like to, when we had this bounce here, I was thinking I wanted to put, more aggressive short entries and even short entries at the weekend on this 2-day supply in here. But I was just a bit loath to, because I know what XRP can be like, and because we do have this untested zone up here, this wick didn't quite get up there. It does make me think that maybe this can go back there before falling. So that's just something to watch out for. And I'm just move this line up. So we'll be looking at taking out that high there, and particularly now we're coming off a higher low. So while I do have an alert for, I think it was that 4 or 5-day supply in there now. 5-day? No, not even. The 3-day supply. So I've got an alert here for 3-day supply, but just be conscious we have this untested 2-day right at the top here, so it could run through that, but we'll just see. Or is this just going to continue to be bullish and break out? So again, reiterate my previous analysis for Ripple and why I like to look for shorts, because I think Ripple very much does these triangle breakdown patterns. We have the possibility of a larger triangle breakdown pattern here. So I want to be trading both directions. It has come up here, we've broken all-time high, but not moved significantly above. We've come back below, we've retested it, so this could go and take out that whole range. And gosh, at least even taking out that low. So I again have an alert here. This is a black one again for the risk, but I have an alert here because it's a retest of a 1-month level and obviously the weekly level there. But because of that triangle structure that we get often on Ripple, be conscious, that was black, and I highlighted in the last video. Don't limit order here because we could just get a wick straight through everything. Wait it out. So yeah, that's the old majors. Then new majors, trying to be quick and failing a bit dismally, really. So just whiz through them now. So BNB, new weekly demand, 2-weekly demand down here, untested zones down here, still strong, but momentum has died. So much like a lot of the other majors, while this is probably one of the strongest, it's broken all-time highs. So I do want to still be bullish on this. That was a stupid possible short entry that I had from last week that failed. No, it really was very much still strong and still in an uptrend. I just kind of thought maybe we'd even get a scalp down into that level, but it just broke straight through it and went for a new high. I think, oh yes, the reason I did that is because I know the BTC pair hits 6 month supply. So we have BTC pairs at 6 month supply, I think on BNB, Link, ADA, BCH, a whole bunch of them. Any of the ones that are stronger, we've got the BTC pair now at 6 month supply. Obviously they're large zones, but time to be careful. And I think I was just me being a little bit too aggressive, thinking, oh, BNB, the BTC pairs hit 6 month supply, let's just short this. So, sticking with just the US dollar structure. So I have an alert here on 1 day, 5 day demand, and it's a more aggressive alert. I had that alert there. It has actually now made a 5 day demand up here. Just fix my lines up. Be accurate. So again, just need to see a little bit more from this. It would be nice if it came down and gave me some tests. If we get a bigger drop, then I'd be looking on the monthly all the way down here on this now. So again, the difficulty on this is, is this going to break out now? Again, if we get alt season, this is going to just moon from here, or is this just, a 3 hits to the high, rising wedge, and now we're due a big drop. So for now, local structure is still up, looking for signs of weakness, and if we start to see some demand break, then I'll be start looking more inclined to short on this. But yeah, definitely no shorts on this at the moment. Link, not dissimilar. I mean, it's still strong, but the major difference with Link is it is in monthly supply here on the US dollar pair, so it's a second test. But still, so obviously whereas BNB has no resistance anymore, this obviously still is in some resistance. This whole thing was in 6 month supply, which I've just hidden because the whole screen is brown. So that's why I was short biased, and I do have reasonable shorts on this, and I've been struggling to long because, I mean, even if where I've had longs, it hasn't come back and tested my long entries. 6 month, let me just go on the 6 month chart. So the 6 months, like really, when I look back, I kind of think, okay, so it had closed below, and I have seen when you've got these scenarios where this candle closes below, it can just tap it and then just fall. So that's what I wanted or what I was looking for on this. Obviously that didn't happen. We're now got a very strong 6 month candle up. Really when I look back with hindsight, then I'm kind of like, well, okay, it's a 6 month supply, more recent, but then it also really had a 6 month demand before. The other problem with this is it's also got an annual demand, or it closed very slightly above that red candle on the last year's candle. So this is still obviously a bullish chart. So the signals have been a bit mixed. The BTC pair on this one, it's hit 6 month supply now. It will also hit, I believe, 2 month, 3 month, and possibly 6 month demand at the base. So I was kind of watching this more to see how it would play out. But again, I don't want to be longing this now. It's at the top, it's the possibility of giving a lower high or breaking out, but we'll trade after the breakout at this point. However, again, not dissimilar to BNB. All the lower time frames, I think we've got a 4 day demand in there that's holding at the moment, 3 day and 4 day. It's made a daily supply, but this is still only a very small amount of local structure. We don't know if this is going to form a downtrend as yet. Still have that alert for the daily supply, and or if it comes up and takes out the high of this last wave. So as normal, just need to see a little bit more on this. Dogecoin. I feel like it worries me a little bit when we're so super silent on. I have to get my Telegram open just in case somebody's gonna tell me I've been talking for 3 hours and the microphone's off or something. No, maybe no, just nobody's around today, who knows. Nothing, nobody's reporting anything, so hopefully the stream's going okay. I am recording it if not, so I guess I can upload the recording later if necessary. So Doggy again is this indicative of the giant triangles I'm talking about, and very, very similar to the others chart. So really, like the others chart's exactly what I've said. We've had this up move, we've got a retracement, then it's like, is this the start of the next up move, or is this a bearish correction before we fall off a cliff? I'd like to say it's the start of the next up move in this case because we are coming off annual demand, but I don't really like that it's really just pretty weak. It's really struggling to get through these zones. And then, like I say, the BTC pair wasn't really where I wanted it to be for this, so I would have liked that to be a little bit lower. I won't go and look at those charts right now. So anyway, the major difference obviously is this made monthly demand, so it came off there. I didn't have time to only put all the alerts on here. I just called them sort of verbally. So we had, I think, Doggy, Ada, and Sol all hit the new monthly demands at the base. We had the shorts in here for a 4-day supply, or 2-day, I think, in the case of Doggy. It wicked through it, came back, and again, just a nice scalp of demand there. But so yeah, I mean, it's up to you what your bias is on this. Like for me, I'm just neutral right now, to be honest, because triangle on top of triangle on top of triangle. I do have an alert here for if the 12-hour gets tested up there because it wasn't tested previously. And then, you know, if this is still a bullish and we're going to get a move, alt season kind of move out, then I'd look at this monthly supply. Is it a monthly or is it a 3-monthly? Rogue text on my level. Need to do that. Yeah, something I had to fix as I go that I talked about in the last stream, that TradingView in their wisdom decided to turn on all the text on all the drawings. Just they used to have an on-off button and they removed the button, thus defaulting everything to on. And thus anything I had with hidden text now shows the wrong text because the text was hidden before, not deleted. Intensely irritating. Anyway, yeah, so Doggy just locally watch 12-hour supply, watch the monthly for, you know, if we do get a bigger move up on this, and then below just back in that triangle / channel. So I need to just keep an eye on what the market cap charts are doing because these are going to help inform my bias a bit better on these. But at the moment, I'm just indecisive, generally indecisive. Sorry, I'm also now clicking the wrong buttons. And then finally on this layout, we have Ada, not dissimilar to, actually it isn't, I was going to say it's not really the same as the Doggy chart. So again, it's in this just sort of giant consolidation here. This did make a 3-week demand. So I think I haven't necessarily mentioned all the 3-week demands on these charts. So just maybe go through, if you're trading any of these, just go through and double check, or, you know, do all the time frames. So this does have a new 3-week demand here, so I do have a more aggressive alert for daily demand there, which obviously hasn't got a hit yet. It's also got the larger 2-week demand here, and then came off the monthly at the base. So I'm inclined to be more bullish on this. I would have liked it to take more stops, so it took these stops at the bottom, but not those stops. So it's a difficult one, still in monthly supply, and it's a retest. So it swing failed monthly supply and rejected, and now it's coming up for a retest. It was the 3rd retest. So again, this is a reasonably strong chart, not as strong as some of the others, but it's up there. When I look at most of the majors on the macro, it's strong. It's just a question of how much more time it's going to need consolidating before it might play out some of that strength. And then also, is it, you know, wanting to retrace down into deeper? That's kind of interesting, actually. So my first thought was when I zoomed out and looked at that this larger structure is kind of similar to this local structure in here. It's actually very similar. Sorry, these are things I just spot occasionally. So if we look at here, that's a nice inverse head and shoulders. But that's, I mean, it's not so much the down move there, but what I'm comparing that to when I look at that is, oops, here. So that little pattern, similar to this pattern. Yeah, it's kind of some similar inverse head and shoulders kind of thing. Doesn't really help me too much though, because this is just on that pattern and then it's broken out, but this is already done as well. So, but it's kind of interesting. I might try and overlay the pattern of that later and see how it plays out. Anyway, yeah, so I've got some local long possible entries in here. So the one day demand there, more aggressive due to the 2-week overall, but then there's also an untested 2-day here, and then the difficulty is that we have an up move, we've got another up move, but it hasn't significantly broken the high, so none of this is strong demand. But with the coming off the monthly here and the 2-week, I think it's worth looking for more aggressive longs, even though it's not strong demand. if that all else fails, then I'd be looking down here for potentially move off there. So that's ADA. Those are the new majors first set, and then new majors second set. Much more than showing the triangles that I talked about. Hi, I am Nazi. Is it BTC? This isn't BTC. I did BTC at the start of the stream for like an hour, so feel free to rewind or watch the recording. So I generally start on Bitcoin, and then I look at market overall, like total and all the US dollar dominance, all that sort of stuff. Then Ether, and then the majors, and then normally I move on to alts, but today I'm probably going to run out of time. So yeah, I'm just doing the last few alts here. So yeah, DOT, obviously, so DOT, this section other than Sol, DOT, NEAR and Atom, I tend to be more bearish on, although NEAR I never want to be because I feel like I want to be bullish on NEAR, but it just tends to copy DOT and Atom. But DOT and Atom are still off, so we're still coming off this massive 3-month supply up here. We made this monthly underneath it. It's in this local triangle, so really, again, like I was just saying on the others, it could just break either way. It's very hard to judge. So we just need to see what this is going to do, but I'm kind of getting to the point that I don't really want to add any more entries in on this. So we had this daily demand long entry at the bottom, so that worked out quite well. Didn't quite hit where I would have wanted a short above. So we just need to see more of how that's going to play out. And then various alerts above if we kind of break up from there. If we break down, we're basically hitting all-time low on this, so be careful. Atom, I still want to be bearish because I hate Atom. It's similar to DOT really. It's coming off this 3-month supply, made a monthly, 2-monthly in fact. It's going up inside it. So I think that these as well, like I do have to think about where the 2-month, some of these might flip monthly and 2-month demand. So this could flip a monthly level. So we have 4 days left. So I really want to see if we're going to flip some monthly levels. And if they start holding, and again, that could be another good sign that we're going to get some alt season or some decent moves upward on alts. But for now, it's still, again, triangling bearish. So actually I should say, so DOT, Atom and NEAR also did make 3-week demand. So you can see this green candle closed just above there by a small amount. So possibly this is going to run from here, but again, I just need to see more signs of it. Yeah, what I want to see, I guess, is some of these alts. Like if these 3-week demands that have been made on the majors here and a lot of the other alts just across the board, if they're going to hold, I want to see some of them starting to run. And if that's the case, then I'll start to look for the ones that haven't run yet. But until I see some of these starting to go, yep, I'm going to hold this 3-week demand and just break hard from here, then I'll start going, okay, well, Atom's broken hard. Let's look and see if we can get in DOT later. So just keep an eye on them and see what runs, if they're going to run. Like I really wouldn't want with a 3-week demand like this, however weak it would be. Like if this was a strong coin, I would expect it to bounce off the top, and obviously it hasn't done that. It's come down very deep inside. This one moment isn't set to create 4-day, 5-day supply, didn't also create the 2-day, so it's still got a daily demand. So we're on daily demand inside the 3 weeks, so it's entirely possible this goes up from here. But with this just horrible sideways range and the fact we're right in the middle of the range, I just don't really want to preempt that. So I've got a possible short on 12-hour supply, so there's nothing new. What I've talked about before, I was hoping it would come up for that, but it didn't before this drop. And then again, various 4-day supply and then 3 months demand, various, and that's probably a monthly demand actually above there. It's probably another rogue. Yeah, another rogue text from TradingView. And yeah, to see if some of these are going to flip monthly demands at the end of the month, and then maybe we do get that bigger move. But overall, I mean, really with Atom, I still want it down here. Whether I'm going to get that, I don't know, because really it's taken it's like a better part of a year and it hasn't hit the level I really wanted to look for longs at. So that's Atom. So what have we done? DOT, Atom, and okay, so NEAR basically the same. So NEAR, I'm more inclined to be bullish on this because this at least has hit the zone I wanted at the lows. We've got monthly or 3 monthly demand down here. But again, it still just seems to, while I want to be bullish, it still seems to mimic all the others. Again, it's made a 3-week demand here. So I hadn't alerted any of these 3 weeks, mainly because it's been too early in the week, and also because Bitcoin, the first thing it did was drop. Near, I really wanted to come down here as well because it's a zone that hasn't quite been tested. So again, you can see it's got that tight consolidation. This did give a nice short. So I had, like I said, I had 2 or 3 shorts at the tops. Sorry, 2 or 3 shorts that I put in on supply for the end of last week. If you were in the group, you would have seen the alerts for those. Yeah, most of those worked out pretty well. So this, I think near was one of them. I'm trying to just pick ones that are a bit cleaner. So then, yeah, we had near, LTC, BCH. Maybe it was only those 3. But yeah, they've all worked quite well. But again, just would like to see this a bit lower. So I've got a lot of sideways going on, large triangle. 2 monthly supply up there if we do get a run upwards, and various weeklies and 5 days inside it. And then at the low, we're still at 3-month demand on this. I think I don't have an alert down here at the moment. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a bit choppy and messy, so I don't know, like if we're going to wear it here. Let's think about that a little bit more. If we drop lower on near, so at the moment it's kind of a question, is this, are these things just giant bear flags? Is this just bear flag, flop? So a little bit hard to judge at the moment, and taking a lot of things taking a really long time. So that's why I just much prefer scalping. And also why I'm saying I'm kind of laying off these majors now. I think you can probably see now I'm going through them, how much they're bouncing around, and it just comes a point where you need to just wait for a breakout. And then finally Solana. So Sol, again, is trying to catch up with the others on strength. The only thing with Sol is, like, I really, really didn't like the BTC power on this either. I've got a feeling it's at supply as well. Well, then maybe it's come through now with this run today. Then, I mean, to be fair, this is still in a big upward structure. You've got 3 months demand at the low. It's a bit of a higher time frame on this. Say 3 month again, though it's a monthly again. Very annoying trading view. I really wish you hadn't done this. If you're watching, please. Actually, I don't know how, you probably can't fix it at this point, but yeah, so still in an uptrend, had months and months pushing above here, and then finally came down to test the level that I actually wanted. So finally got that long entry on the monthly there. Did get a long entry on the new monthly that was created in here. So not surprised that this has come back and taken up high. But now in monthly supply, so we had the first hit on monthly supply previously, came down, test monthly demand, and now we're going up again. Did put an alert in on this 2-day demand for a possible long, but it's just run before revisiting that. 61 fibs a little bit higher, and then I've got alert, it's up here is just pretty choppy, so I do have an alert here for a 2-day supply, but there's a 2 days, there's 3 days, another 3 days, so just see trade zones, the reactions, when you see the reactions actually have when you see the zone actually have a reaction on it hits, like, again, don't be limit order up here, because this is still in, like, while it's a fairly nasty consolidation and far too extended, this could still run up for off the monthly demand for a new high. Yeah, so that's it on the majors. So I don't know, I hope you can see from that the sort of somewhat indecision I'm having, and yeah, all the zones that I'm interested in on the. Oh wow, I had a big reaction. Alts just stay the same. Like, I would love to do. I wish I could just get around to being more frequent on streams and trying to. We haven't had much move on Bitcoin, but and trying to be able to give you, like, more of these alerts that I get. But I mean, as I always say, you can join the group if you want to get more action and more alerts regularly. Somebody said to me yesterday, actually, they thought my analysis was in really high time frame, and I'm like, well, yes, it's high time frame with what I put in the channel, because I can't put. I chart so many things, I can't put things on all the low time. I try and do a bit of low time frame, obviously, on BTC and Ether. but it takes a lot more of my energy and time to do the low time frame. So, and there's so much of it that I can't post everything. But feel free to join my group if you want the low time frame stuff, because, you know, these alerts are coming in all the time. I'm not always right, but, you know, you're getting scalps in both directions. And the person said to me, oh, they thought maybe I was missing, you know, the 20-30% moves because I was looking for these big moves. And I'm like, well, no, not at all. And I actually use FARTCOIN as an example, but, you know, it's the same here. You know, we've got a daily demand, daily supply, and you can just trade between the two. So I try and do some not necessarily as clean as that, but that's a pretty nice clean one. So, but I was saying the example I was giving guys, like maybe I'm not trading these longs here, but for me, I'm trying to trade in the direction that I believe. So overarchingly, this is in a weekly supply. It's made a new monthly supply last month. So my bias flips short. So then, you know, the bigger trades for me, the higher probability trades are going to be shorts. So yes, maybe I miss this move, but that move didn't really come off anything significant here to the left for me. So it's like, well, I'd rather wait for the short entry. So I had, you know, a short entry here just on the immediate hit to the monthly. I've had a short possibility higher up here if we get a higher move into the monthly. Then this was a retest of a 12-hour in here, which was in hindsight a bit stupid because I knew this zone hadn't quite been tested. So I then reset the alert for a decent move back down here. And then similarly here, I had a 4-hour supply. It took a bit of time, but held the 4-hour before the big drop on Sunday. But, you know, all of these could then end up, excuse me, in the big drop. So it's difficult because something like FARTCOIN, it takes its time. You know, how long it might go here before falling off a cliff. But, you know, now we're on monthly supply. Sure, we might come higher inside it, but my bias is for a decent move down. Sorry, correct that. Yeah, my bias is that. However, just the only thing is just be conscious, like countering that monthly, as we do have a 2-monthly demand here. But obviously we've tested this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or the lower time frame 6, 7, you know, now we've tested this 8 times. So I kind of was expecting this local range to at least fail, and then we'll come back down here and then I'll look for longs. But for now, I am short bias. So therefore, yes, while I may put, you know, 1 month supply and then people are like, oh, they don't want to trade a monthly zone, like you can get the initial reaction off it, but also you're looking for the 12, 8-hour, 1 day, whatever, to build up to give you the bigger short entries based off the larger monthly supply. So, you know, in this case, I think we just saved itself enough not to quite make 3-weekly supply or 2-weekly supply or even weekly. Yeah, so on this we may make 5-day, 4-day supply in the next couple of days. It already has a 3-day. So start putting that in. And then you can start adding into these trades. See what I'm doing a bit better. So these 3 days I don't really want to short because they're too large. I don't really want to look for aggressive, you know, they could still go up inside, and also a lot of them are just coming down into immediate demands. So FARTCOIN's a bit of a challenging one. Here it is now on a daily demand in there, which has already been tested, but it's like a rounded retest of daily demand here. So this could get a bigger move up from here, but my preference would still be to look for longs lower on this. An hourly supply there hasn't been tested, and still that daily above, but then we have this immediate 3 days. So this is just something I wouldn't even bother looking for longs at the moment. You know, if it runs through this zone, then you can look for a long on the retest, else looking for shorts for it to go lower. Yeah, so that's FARTCOIN, and you can see in reverse. Oops. You can see exactly the same in reverse here, you know, like this came down into a zone I was interested in looking for longs in this large weekly zone. We had, you know, the first hit on it, didn't get very far, then we had a deeper hit, and then it starts reversing, and you start getting multiple long entries and re-entries before the big move up. So things take time. This has taken a lot longer on the short side, but it's distributing, it's not surprising. And this is also potentially a much larger distribution as well. So just be conscious of that pattern potentially playing out. Right, anyway, I think I might leave it there for now. And then, like I say, I'm going to be away for a few days, so I'm not going to be able to stream until next week, unfortunately. I don't know if there's anything else I really want to add on the alts. All my strategies remain the same. Like I'm still looking at, the top, sorting my watch list by the percentage of change, looking at the top and the bottom section and trying to trade them back in the other direction. Or sometimes in some cases, like jumping on. So for example, Dolo here, which has now got a bit battered back down, but it hit 5-day demand here. So you're looking to jump on that trend, after things have run, when they've got momentum, rather than trying to guess what's going to break out before it breaks. So yeah, Bank's one I like. It's kind of an interesting one, so I'm glad that held there. So looking for a decent move on that. RWA, I was looking for a decent move on. That one, yeah, again, came back down harder than I would have liked, but it come back down into a 5-day demand. So seeing if that's going to get a big move. But yeah, some of these alts are positioned quite nice if you get decent moves. And then, so the other thing I actually haven't commented on, so one of the things that, again, was very much a top signal was China coins pumping. So I went back and looked through my channels to the last time I said it. So they go back to the BTC chart, and it was April 2024. So, yeah. So it was basically in this candle there, or that last push up there. It's actually my birthday. But anyway, yeah, it was in that last push up there, and that's when the China coins started pumping. And I remember saying at the time, isn't this a top signal? And it fell, and I found that back in the chat. And I said again, isn't this a top signal at the weekend, like just when the China coins started pumping? So we had, at the weekend, we had ONT pumped, QTUM pumped, what else? The three. Damn, I can't remember the third. I made a few other pumps. Actually, Prompt was one of the other ones I was looking at, but I don't know if Prompt is a China coin. But the ONT, ONG, I think the gas coins didn't go up as much. Neo, I think some of them didn't go up as much, but we did have like ONT and QTUM. I tend to be the bigger ones that do go up. God, am I having a complete black block on what the other ones are now? I want to say FET, but that's not right. Anyway, yeah, but so QTUM and ONT being the two that I can think of right now. So yeah, straight up into the 3-month, 6-month supply, and then battered straight back down again. This is now coupled into 4-hour demand. So let's see. But again, if I can look back to the structure was very different in April 2024. But yeah, it really was sort of a last hurrah pump. And then the whole market died for an extended period of time, and it didn't hold any of the tests. And then, you just got some really nice short entries to get back into that for the bigger drop. I don't know, maybe need to look at actually 29th of November. That seems like that might have been a top signal as well. So a little bit later. 4th of December. Let's see, what December 2024 was that also a top signal? Not so much actually. I don't know. No, it's at the end of November. Maybe a little local top signal. I think it was around here actually. So maybe a little local top signal, but I'm not necessarily saying this is a significant top signal, but there has been signs in the past that when the China coins pump, then the whole market's about ready to dump. In fact, there's probably, I think they're actually not specific. There's some various things. So we say Ripple's the top signal. I say all the majors as a whole, when they all hit supply, they're top signals. But I like Ripple as a top signal. TRX has been a good top signal in the past. I used to use EOS a lot, but I removed EOS when they changed it to A, because then I figured it wasn't the same. China coins, but yeah, there tends to be like a group or specific coins that are of interest, and that when they pump, when nothing else is pumping, then you think it's done. So yeah, that was turned out to be the case of on Sunday or the weekend with the China coins pumping. Don't necessarily mean it's a done, as in we're gonna fall like significantly like this, but it's possible. This has come off 6-month, 3-month supply, so like these are, while I've got long entries in there, I expect, but my bias on this is still down on the macro. Let's see what QTUM did. So less of a dump on that, but again, it's just hit and wants to fall, or was consolidating and thinking about it. Neo, if I looked at Neo, also did have a pump, not a very significant one. Anyway, that was just a little observation I made the other day, and I just kind of went, hold on a sec, why China coins are pumping? And I noticed that because when I do that sort that I do on the watch list, then I'll see that QTUM and ONT, etc. are at the top, and I'm like, that's unusual because QTUM and ONT tend not to be at the top, and then everything falls. But yeah, anyway, so I'm still doing my same strategy of sorting this list, and then when as and when things are coming into should I put that back on ONT while I remember? As and when things are coming into zones of interest. So things that are pumping, so CRO, for example, obviously was pumping yesterday, so I know it's pumping, and I make sure go in and make sure I've got alerts put on to the next zones of interest. So double top here, 2-day supply there, and then obviously 3-week and monthly supply a bit higher. So had the alert set for the possibility of the swing fail here. Obviously it's pushed higher, and it may push higher again. And then I'll also look at, is it worth like jumping into this on the long side? In the case of CRO, it might be. Alternatively, in the case of something like ONT, where it's hitting major 6-month supply, then I'm looking at probably not for longs, or in this case maybe, because this could give you a scalp off here, but less for longs and more for like, where am I getting into shorts on this? So yeah, a kind of variable. And then similarly, like I think it's less reliable, but I also go to the bottom end of the watch list. Just sort and see what's down there at the moment. In fact, Matt, so this is Matt here, and Matt being at the weakest now actually is one of the ones that's up, but I will tend to look at, sort of things like, okay, so brick is dumping. So do I have an alert for this if it's about to come into demand? So in this case, yes, I do. It's going to come into 3-day demand down there. I tend to find the short or the negatives less reliable, because if the whole market's just kind of going sideways and up, and something's particularly weak, that tends to not be a very good thing in crypto. Whereas you can look for the reversals. So there's nothing wrong with still looking for the reversals, but I think you're less likely, there's less reliability of this bouncing and suddenly having it, like it might bounce and take time and go sideways, but it's less likely to just bounce and run. Whereas on the short side, they're much more likely to just reject hard if they want to, like we saw in ONT. So you can see on Gore, I mean, Gore actually didn't quite hit my level, to be fair, but I had an alert for this zone just below, but you can see it did have a decent bounce, but it's just gone straight back up into supply. So it's entirely possible that this, has gone into supply and it's just going to start to die further, because if you're in this, I guess it's just very much dependent on structure. You can see here, this would have probably been one of the red ones at the time and had a massive bounce off that level. So, but I do tend to prefer, and it might just be because I tend to prefer shorts, and I'm short biased because I find the market easier to short than long. Yeah, I tend to prefer the alerts for things running up and then shorting them back down than the other way around, and things running down and longing them back up. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to run because that's obviously now a 1 hour 45 minute stream, and yeah, so unfortunately I haven't done as many calls as I would like, but I will again endeavour to come back more next week. In my defence, well, it's not really my defence, but it is summer here, so when it's summer, obviously I want to be outside more and doing more stuff, so you'll be pleased to know that as it starts to come into winter, like we're at the end of August now, if it starts to come into winter, at least September, October, certainly November, December, then I'm more likely to be at home more, and then I'll probably do a lot more streams. Similar to the start of this year, I was doing a lot more streams because it was January, February, and the weather's a bit crap and I don't want to be out of the house. So, anyway, I didn't look at the Bitcoin data, did I? That was kind of my intention. Yeah, I won't do that. I think I just looked at liquidations. That was it. The only final thing I'll comment on this is again, just keep your eyes on the ETF data. This farside.co.uk is the website. So we had all that selling off of Bitcoin last week, but then we have had some buying coming back in over the last 2 days. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe this is gonna hold okay. And then similarly on Ether. Ether's just had huge amounts of buying. It did have some selling last week, and for the first time on BlackRock, but it has really kicked back in again, actually the last 2 days of last week and start of this week. We've really got buying kicking back in on Ether. So I wouldn't really fight them. I mean, the institutions, like, they did very much buy the top on Bitcoin when we had the 6-month consolidation back at, I don't even remember now, 100K was it? Not sure. But yeah, when we had that 6-month consolidation of sideways, you know, the ETFs very much had bought the top there. So don't treat this as gospel and that it means it's going to go up. But I would like to sort of at least try and be on the same side as them to some extent, whilst incorporating not taking longs in supply. But certainly, if you're longing on demand and you see the ETFs have been selling the day before, then you might be slightly second guessing whether you should stay in your long. Yeah, so anyway, I would encourage you to look at this data. I encourage you to look at all of the data, but I certainly encourage you to look at least at the ETF data, at liquidations data, and, you know, the walls and all the rest of it. It's kind of at your leisure as to how much information and how much certainty you want. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to head off now. I will do timestamps later for this. If you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe to support me. Please feel free to share with anyone and everyone. And also hit me up on Telegram or in the comments if you have any questions or want anything charted for next time. So have a good evening. Ciao.